The story begins with a hardcore gamer named Kanishi, who has just finished a game that took him a full 3 years to complete. After clearing it, he leans back in his chair and lets out a sigh, thinking about how boring and disappointing the game actually was. Despite the long time it took, it never truly challenged him. What Kanishi really wants is a game that will push him to his limits, something so difficult that it would take him at least 10 years to beat. He wants a real challenge, not something he can clear with enough patience. With that in mind, Kanishi immediately starts searching for his next game. He scrolls through different titles, reviews, and recommendations, but nothing catches his interest. Suddenly, his computer screen glitches and flickers. Strange text appears on the screen, offering him a game that never ends and is set in a fantasy world filled with magic. Kanishi's eyes widen in excitement. He has never heard of a game that never ends before, and the idea alone gets his heart racing. Without hesitation, he clicks on it. He is then asked to select the difficulty level. The options range from easy mode to hard mode, which already seems standard and uninteresting to him. However, as he scrolls down further, he notices an extra option at the bottom called Hell Mode. This is something he has never seen in any game before. His excitement skyrockets as he realizes that this might finally be the challenge he has been looking for. Without a second thought, he selects Hell Mode. Next, he chooses the Summoner class and confidently clicks the Start button. The moment he does, something strange happens. His screen flashes brightly, and before he can react, he gets sucked straight into his computer screen. The next thing he knows, he wakes up in a completely different world as a newborn baby, crying as he is born into a poor serf family. Shortly after his birth, a man picks him up gently and gives him a name. That name is Alan. Surprisingly, Alan does not feel upset about his situation. In his previous life, he was a 35-year-old broke gamer stuck, working a dead-end job with no future. Compared to that, this new life feels like a fresh start. Being reincarnated gives him a second chance to live a better and more meaningful life. At the moment, Alan is only 1 year old, so he cannot speak yet. However, he has no trouble thinking clearly inside his mind. He can organize his thoughts, understand what people say around him, and observe everything carefully. He also realizes that the language spoken in this world is Japanese, meaning it is the common language here. Alan and his family live in a frontier village where pioneers pay taxes to a ruling lord in exchange for the right to cultivate the land. The village is still new and undeveloped, so it does not even have a proper name yet. Alan's father is named Rodden, a hardworking and caring man who does everything he can to support his family. Judging by his looks and behavior, Alan guesses that Rodden is around 20 years old. His mother's name is Derja, and Alan assumes she is likely in her late teens. Watching how close and loving his parents are with each other, Alan figures it is only a matter of time before he ends up with younger siblings as well. Later that night, after Alan is put to bed, he lies there quietly and starts thinking. He suddenly remembers that in this world, he is supposed to be a summoner. Curious, he decides to try opening a status window to check his stats. However, the moment he attempts to do that, something unexpected happens. Instead of a simple window appearing, a large book suddenly materializes and floats above him in the air. Alan shrieks in shock at the sudden sight of it, completely startled by what just appeared. His shout immediately grabs his parents' attention. Realizing this is bad, Alan panics and quickly makes the floating book disappear before they can see it. His parents rush in to check on him, but when they see that nothing strange is happening, they assume he was just making noise in his sleep. Thinking it is nothing serious, they quietly leave the room. Once they are gone, Alan carefully brings the book back out again. He soon learns that the floating book is actually a grimoire that contains all the details about his stats and abilities. As he reads through it, he confirms that he really is a summoner, just like the class he chose in the game. The book explains that he can summon creatures, but because of his young age, he is currently limited to summoning only insects and beasts. Even so, Alan feels extremely excited. He wants to summon something right away, so he tries summoning an insect. However, no matter how many times he tries, nothing happens at all. After several failed attempts, Alan forces himself to calm down and think carefully. He remembers another skill listed in the grimoire and decides to try using his create skill first. When he activates it, something finally happens. A crafting card for an insect appears right in front of him. Seeing this, Alan realizes that he needs to create the creature first before he can summon it. Now that he has the crafting card, he prepares to summon the insect properly. Just as he is about to do it, his mother comes in to check on him. Alan reacts instantly, lying back down and pretending to be asleep. Even after his mother father leaves the room, he notices that he is suddenly very tired. His eyelids feel heavy, and he realizes that forcing himself to stay awake is pointless. Deciding it is better to rest, he chooses to go to sleep and try summoning again the next morning. The following morning, when his parents are not watching him, Alan carefully brings out his grimoire again. This time, he successfully completes the summoning. In an instant, a giant grasshopper appears and jumps straight onto his face. Alan panics, but quickly recovers and tries giving it orders, telling it to obey him. Unfortunately, the grasshopper shows no interest in listening and simply hops away on its own. Confused, Alan checks the grimoire again, hoping it might explain what is going on. He finds the grasshopper's stats written inside the book. The grimoire also informs him that he needs to give his summoned creature a name. After thinking for a moment, Alan decides that Denka sounds like a decent name for a grasshopper. He then looks at his own stats and realizes that summoning Denka has actually increased his abilities. However, before he can celebrate, his mother suddenly walks into the room. She immediately notices Denka, since she is extremely afraid of insects. She reacts without thinking and instantly squashes the grasshopper. Just like that, Denka is gone. After a few more days of playing around with his skills and testing different things, Alan finally manages to summon another creature. This time, it is a small mouse, which he decides to name Mousy. Unfortunately, Mousy turns out to be just as unintelligent as Denka was. He does not really listen to orders and mostly does whatever he wants. However, unlike Denka, Mousy has a useful ability called Scurry, which allows him to move around the room at an extremely fast speed. While Mousy is still not very obedient, he will at least use Scurry whenever Alan tells him to, which makes Alan feel slightly better about the summon. Alan spends the rest of the day carefully studying his grimoire. He reads through every page again and again, trying to understand how summoning really works and what he needs to do to summon stronger monsters that can properly follow commands. He thinks about different methods, possible conditions, and skill combinations, but no matter how much he studies, he cannot find a clear answer. In the end, all his effort leads to nothing, and he is left feeling a little frustrated. That afternoon, Alan's father, Rodden, finally returns home. His clothes are stained with blood, and it is clear that he has just come back from a dangerous hunt. Rodden proudly tells Alan that he managed to take down a massive boar. He goes on to describe just how large and terrifying it was, and then asks Alan if he wants to go see it. Hearing this, Alan becomes incredibly excited. This would be the first real monster he has ever seen in this world. Seeing how thrilled his son is, Rodden decides to take him along. This is Alan's first time leaving the house, so he feels thrilled. At that moment, his father points toward a flock of birds known as albahiron. During this season, they fly north together, signaling the arrival of fall. Rodden then explains to Alan that he named him after the albahiron. After about a 10-minute walk, they arrive at the spot where the boar is being cut up. Several people are already there, working together to process the monster. At first, Alan is filled with excitement as he stares at it up close. However, after examining it more carefully, that excitement slowly turns into fear. Seeing such a large and powerful monster in person makes him realize just how terrifying it truly is. Alan understands that if he ever had to fight something like this right now, he would stand no chance at all. After a short while, one of their neighbors, a man named Gerda, walks over to Rodden and congratulates him on defeating the boar. Soon after, the other villagers nearby begin cheering as well. They all know that taking down a boar like that is no easy task and that it is a great achievement. Rodden then formally introduces Alan to Gerda. Gerda is left completely speechless when he sees how polite and well-mannered Alan is, especially considering that he is only 1-year-old. Putting that aside, Alan asks Gerda how strong a boar actually is. Gerda explains that boars are naturally C-rank monsters, and that it usually takes around 20 people working together to bring just one of them down. Hearing this, Alan quietly takes note of the information. He realizes that this gives him a clear benchmark for what kind of strength exists in this world, and what he might have to face in the future. About 10 months later, Alan receives some exciting news. He discovers that he has finally reached level 2 as a summoner. This level up allows him to create G-rank creature cards, which is a big step forward for him. On top of that, he gains a brand new skill that lets him fuse his summoned creatures together. The best part of all is that his inventory space doubles. This means he can now hold twice as many buffs as before, greatly increasing his potential strength. That night, after finishing dinner, Alan feels more excited than ever. With his new level, new skill, and expanded inventory, he eagerly prepares to test out his fusion technique for the very first time. But Alan soon ends up feeling disappointed when he realizes that he still cannot use his fusion technique on his cards, even when his MP is completely full. No matter how hard he tries or how carefully he follows the process, the fusion simply does not activate. This frustrates him, but he understands that he is still too young and not strong enough yet. Time passes, and by the time Alan turns 3 years old, he has made clear and noticeable progress on his path as a summoner. After many attempts and much practice, he finally succeeds in using his fusion technique on several of his cards. Through this process, he manages to craft a bird card, and the bird he summons from it is named Chappie. Chappie has a special ability called voice mimicry, which allows him to perfectly imitate anything Alan says. When Alan hears Chappie copy his voice, he immediately realizes how useful this ability could be. He imagines using it to confuse enemies, lure monsters into traps, or create distractions during battle. As Alan looks at everything he has learned so far, he feels satisfied with how deep and complex this world is. He honestly admits to himself that this world feels like the peak of hardcore gaming, far beyond anything he ever experienced in his previous life. By the time it reaches 3 o'clock in the afternoon, one of Alan's friends, a girl named Krina, comes over for a playdate. As usual, they start playing knights and sword fighting with wooden sticks. At first, Alan underestimates her, thinking that winning will be easy for him. However, to his surprise, Krina is much faster and more agile than he expected. She moves quickly, dodges his attacks, and strikes back before he can react. Alan struggles to keep up with her pace, and before he realizes it, he ends up losing the fight. By the end of the day, Alan is completely worn out and beaten badly by Krina. His body aches and his pride is bruised, but instead of feeling discouraged, he quietly vows to himself that he will become stronger before their next battle. That night, important news is revealed to the family. Derja announces that she is pregnant. Hearing this, Alan tells his father that he wants to help with harvesting the potatoes, since his mother will not be able to help as much anymore. Deep down, Alan knows he will be fine doing physical labor because he now has the stamina of a grown adult. However, his parents do not know that. They gently tell him that a child his age should not have to work and that he should focus on playing and having fun instead. They encourage him to keep spending time with Krina since they have noticed how happy he looks when they play nights together. They also mention that they are really looking forward to Alan's appraisal ceremony. Alan has no idea what that is, so Derja explains that when he turns 5 years old, there will be a divine ceremony to determine what kind of talent he possesses. They truly hope that Alan will receive a good talent, one that could finally free their family from life as serfs. A few months later, during the winter season, Alan accidentally forgets to put Denka away. Because of this, his mother suddenly sees the insect. Terrified, Derja slips and falls to the ground. When Rodden rushes in to check on her, Derja tells him that her water has broken and that the baby is coming. Krina happens to be nearby at the time, since she and Alan were having another playdate. Rodden quickly asks Krina to go get her parents because they have experience helping with childbirth. Not long after, Gerda and his wife, Matilda, arrive to help Derja. Matilda takes charge of the situation and prepares to deliver the baby. She immediately orders all the men out of the house, saying she needs privacy to work properly. The long night passes, and by the next morning, the boys wake up to the sound of a baby crying. They rush over and find that the baby has been safely delivered. Derja asks Rodden to name the child. Without thinking too deeply about it, Rodden decides to name him Mash. Derja instantly loves the name, but after thinking about it for a few seconds, she wonders if the name came from a monster. Rodden admits that it did, but Derja cannot deny that it sounds good. She starts laughing, and everyone else joins in. As they laugh together, Alan quietly watches them. Thinking back on everything, Alan realizes that he never truly understood why he was reincarnated in the first place. Aside from his desperate wish to play a hardcore game with terrible balance, he remembers how miserable and meaningless his old life felt and realizes that he is completely fine leaving it behind. In this new world, he feels free, unrestrained, and full of possibilities. More than anything else, he knows that this new family is the best part of his new life. He is not sure how he will do it yet, but Alan makes a silent promise to himself. No matter what it takes, he will free his family from the harsh life of being serfs. That was episode 1. Subscribe to not miss the next part and watch the next video on screen.